Hey, Legacy Builders, this is Melinda Colón, and I want to welcome you to the Legacy Builders Unleashed podcast, the go-to podcast for visionary entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders who are ready to scale their businesses fast while leaving a lasting impact. Each episode will deliver actionable insights on marketing, business strategy, and mindset tailored to legacy builders. Whether you're scaling to your next million, refining your systems, or looking to cement your influence for generations to come, this podcast will empower you to level up and build a legacy that stands the test of time. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey, Legacy Builders, it's Melinda here, your host of the Legacy Builders Unleashed. In today's episode, because it's our inaugural episode for this podcast, I wanted to dive into the legacy mindset and really building a business that lasts. So I want to focus on shifting from short-term wins to creating a long-term legacy and really discuss how to define your vision and align it with your values and build a business model that thrives beyond you. So let me just really kind of break down why this podcast exists and what it's going to do to serve you in your life and in your business. As an entrepreneur and someone who has always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even when I worked a 9-to-5 corporate job, I knew that I wanted to give more. In fact, there are so many times where I did give more in my job or just in different volunteer environments or, different little like freelance projects. In fact, I freelanced for 13 years before really taking the plunge and going full time into my business. And what I realized about this whole journey in entrepreneurship is that there has to be a why. Anybody has ever asked you, what's your why? My why is pretty big. And I'm assuming that if you're a legacy builder, your why is pretty big too. My why is big because I focus on primarily what I'm going to be leaving behind for my family, for my future one day kids, and for my community. And when I think about that, it really does put me into a momentum to really accelerate what I'm doing today and staying focused on accomplishing my goals. So let me take you back into the mid 2017, 2018 time. And there was, just a few years before, I watched, the media just exploit Robin Williams when he passed. And that was a really challenging thing to see, especially of a child of the 80s who grew up in the 90s. And just Robin Williams was the person that made you laugh and he made you cry and he made you feel all these emotions. And he was just such a creative. And then again, we just saw one after another, this really big influence, and both in the celebrity space, influential, even authors and people that really changed the world. And I thought to myself, what is happening? Right? Like, yes, of course, there is going to be an end to life. But what is happening to the rest of our world? Who is going to step up to the plate and fill their shoes or at least continue the work that they started? And I remember I was at my job and we just had found out that Prince passed away. And I was standing next to a coworker of mine and we were watching the news together at the office. It was probably like, an early morning kind of somebody turned on the news and we started watching it. And I just blurted out like, oh my gosh, this is, this is terrible. And I was just really distraught and very sad. And I said to him, oh man, where are our leaders going? And he was like, oh, don't worry about it. Someone will fill in the shoes. Someone will show up. Someone will. And, he's at the time he was in this probably late 50s, early 60s when he said this. And I thought to myself when I was in my mid 30s, like hearing him say this is, how long do you think we should wait in order to find someone who is going to be as musically inclined, who is going to impact the world in such a big way? I mean, we saw Michael Jackson, Robin Williams, Prince, and so many others, just pass away with leaving these amazing legacies behind them. And their shoes are huge. It's not like there's going to be one person that's going to appear one day and fill those shoes. It takes time to build a legacy. And that's when I realized that how much time was I willing to take in order to create something that was going to last longer than I would. We're all meant to die, one day we're all going to leave this earth and go to heaven, hopefully. And what do we leave for our family? Like, what do we leave for our kids? I even think about, when my mother passed from cancer, it's just, she left so many stories. She left, a daughter that just loves music and just loves being silly and loves games and loves math and so many great qualities. And I also think about some of my weaknesses and how I wish I would have learned that when I was younger. Granted, I am very grateful for how I was raised because we definitely were privileged. However, I think about how better it would be if I leave more for my children. I would leave more for my community than what was left for me. And it's not to say that I didn't have enough, right? It's to say that in order to honor her, in order to honor my parents for the work that they did, the hard work of raising their children and putting them to college and, making sure that they were taken care of and really instilling God into their faith and their beliefs. Beyond that, how to feel and be empowered and inspired to continue doing great work in the world, regardless of what support you might get or, the relationships you build or trusting and just different things that didn't exist for me. And I had to learn as I got older, and I realized the value of them afterwards. Because I had to learn them. But I just think about those things of like, how can I make it better for the next generation in honor of my parents, and so that they have a better life, and then so on and so forth. They learn how to make a better life for their following generation, and so on and so forth. And that's really, really inspiring and empowers me to continue to work hard. And when I fall and I don't get it right all the time and I make mistakes and, I lose and, I want to give up, I don't give up because it's bigger than me. If I focused on just my lifetime, I feel like I would miss out on just so much of God's glory that has existed before my time. So one of my loves is trees. I know this sounds really weird. I am not a tree hugger. I just love looking at trees. I don't like touching them. I don't like climbing them. I just don't like, I love looking at them and sitting under big, beautiful trees, specifically like weeping willows and oak trees and just like really gorgeous big trees. Well, if you ever do any research on trees, they've lived much longer than you and I have ever lived. Those big stumps that are wider than the gap between our arms, it's like so big. They've lived centuries and they've seen and experienced so much in our world. And I think about that as a legacy, something that is so rooted in the ground, so deeply rooted in the ground that it influences the growth around it. And its shade, it provides a shade from the heat, right? It just kind of provides this safety and this security for things beneath it, beneath the branches. And doing so many different things like the tree, extending my arms, creating shades, um, creating noise, right? It's just so many different things that a tree does that sometimes it's just kind of like taking a step back and from the busyness and the wows of the awesomeness of the world and just looking at the simple things of how simple a tree exists. And every single day it praises God just by existing, just by doing what it's supposed to do as being a tree. And I think about what I could do as a human being, as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, as a one day, hopefully, mom, right? Just all the things. What can I be doing to be like this tree, to be pleasing to God in just my ability to live my purpose? And that came back down to the legacy building opportunity that I had right in front of me. Now that I relinquished corporate 9 to 5 and the residual that came with that of believing that I couldn't charge high ticket offers, I couldn't invest in myself, I had to live within or work within someone else's boundaries that were set for me. And when I broke all of those lies and those just restrictions, and I stepped into entrepreneurship for what it is today, I realized that I had a lot to offer. And I also had a lot to go through, like really navigate through, because it's just like being a multi-passionate person, a business owner, an entrepreneur, someone who was like, oh, this would be a great idea. This would be a great idea. Coming up with business ideas left and right. I think about that. I'm like, how do I share this with other people? If I truly believe in abundance, I know that there will be more than enough left over. And so I come up with these ideas and I'm like, okay, so what I should just launch this and launch that and launch this. And ultimately, I just reflect back to, what would a tree do? A tree doesn't shift into becoming a bush or a tree doesn't shift into becoming a bird. Like, it's maybe multi-passionate in how it serves, but own its own right is just to exist. It's just to do what it's supposed to do and try to stay focused on that for as long as possible. And if things that grow out of it that are, I guess, mutated from its original purpose, then it's beauty in and of itself, that God is creating something new. But it's that focus, right? It's like, how do you become a multi-passionate entrepreneur that's successful at business and leaving a legacy for their community and their family? I believe that it's focus. Like, the key to all of it is focus. So it's like, it's not the what you will select from the many that you will only do for the rest of your life. It's, what is the starting point and how do the rest of the pieces connect, right? Because a tree comes from a seed, and the seed's roots go down first. They do one thing at a time. And then once the roots are nice and settled and they grow strong, then we start to see the sprout of the stem, and then it becomes the actual leaves and branches, and then it evolves even in its color, right? Just so much happens in the transitioning and the transformation of a tree, but it's still doing the same thing. It's still existing as a tree. So it's like, okay, so I'm going to exist as an entrepreneur. I'm going to exist as a wife. I'm going to exist as a mother, a believer, a faith follower. And those are all things that I'm doing. And that's what's so amazing about who we are and how we're created. We're much more multifaceted than a tree. But where do we start? I believe it starts with focus. Focus on our beliefs, focus on who we are, focus on who we want to be, and focus on the faith that will get there. Many of you might think to yourself, oh man, I want to leave a legacy, but it's hard. Or I can't do it by myself. Or I'll do my best. Or, just if I win the lottery, right? Like, just like, and what I'm asking you to do, friends, is actually allow that part of you that has always existed, that dreams and imagines, to be the thing that leads the growth in your life, that leads the growth in your business. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, I want to build this amazing business and I want to create this new product or service, or I need to offer this, that, and the other. And you have this beautiful, grand scheme, right? And because it's so much bigger than you, what happens? You give up on it. You put it on the shelf, and you just focus on what you believe you're able to do. With faith and with focus, you can do a lot more than what you believe you're able to do right now. I mean, we see it everywhere. We see the Walt Disneys of the world, the Apples of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. We see all of these influencers that are doing something, and they're called trailblazers because they're creating something that never existed before, that's serving and impacting the world. So if they're made of the same skin and blood, they have the same opportunities. They had the opportunity to be born of a person, of a woman. They took her first steps just like you. They sleep like you. They eat like you. They move like you. They think like you. They love like you. They cry like you. They feel just like you. What makes them different? And I believe it's focus. Focus on the long term instead of the short term, but using every single win that we acquire along the way as opportunities for us to build strength, opportunities for us to collect them all. right out of a game box book. It's just like one of those games where just like, if you were a kid and you got those like little Mickey D meals or whatever, and I never enjoyed them. I only ate the fries. And if they were cold, I didn't mean to eat them. But anyway, and they come with like all the toys, right? And then on TV they'd show you, or when you went to the restaurant, they'd show you like get all 5, right? It was just like this incentive to continue to come back to McDonald's and use McDonald's as your go-to, because your kids would be like excited to get all 5 little cars or 5 characters or whatever. So how can you collect all 5 in your life? How can you collect all 5? It's like, how can you collect all the wins along the journey and enjoy and celebrate and play with them along the way? It's just like within gratitude, with full alignment to your purpose. And I believe truly that in the work of moving and taking steps is where you find full understanding of your purpose, because I believe it evolves. But we have to take that first step. We have to take that first step that is going to ignite momentum and fuel for us to get to the next one and the next one and the next one, and finally achieve that long-term legacy goal. So this is what this podcast is about, is like going deep into the mindset, getting excited about what we're doing, and really aligning our business strategy with building a legacy that goes beyond us. We're also going to be talking about some marketing strategies, and how I teach and share my marketing tactics and strategies is really looking at it as it's all applicable. I like multi-use, multi-purpose. There was a infomercial years ago, decades ago, really now, and they were selling a kitchen appliance, and their theme was set it and forget it. Set it and forget it. It was almost like sing-songy when the crowd would say it. Set it and forget it. Set it and forget it. And it was just this thing. It's like once you know how marketing could be applied to both in-person, online, offline activities in your business, oh man, it doesn't matter what new social media platform, new AI thing, new this, new that, you'll know exactly where to start. And you'll know exactly how to utilize whatever that resource is to benefit your community and your ability to reach your people. So that's what I'm expecting to do here with the Legacy Builders Unleashed. I'm so excited for you to be a part of this journey with me, and with many of my guests that will be coming on to sharing their amazing stories with you. And buckle up, it's going to be an amazing journey.